What's up, guys? This is Mason with Zen Float Co.
And this is Randall running around to see you again. So today we're going to talk about basically or what happens if you go out of town. You know, a lot of people will ask, because we harp on water maintenance so much, it's really easy to do. It only takes 10 or 15 minutes a week, probably less. But if you're going to go out of town, obviously you can't do that 10 to 15 minutes per week. And so there's no need to be worried, basically. So I'll let Mason kind of kick it off on what to do if you're going to go out of town for a couple weeks or a month or so.
Yeah, so the first thing you're going to want to do is always check your water levels, do your water maintenance that you normally would do. So start out with the weekly and do your pH, your alkalinity, and your peroxide. And then for the peroxide specifically, I would make sure that you add a little bit more than you normally would. That'll hold you over while you're gone and make sure that the peroxide level stays where it should be at or right around where it should be. So that's the first biggest one. You want to take another one?
Yeah. So, and I learned this just barely today from Mason, but if you are going to go out of town and you do you check your pH levels, alkalinity levels, make sure those are good. Also, make sure your peroxide levels are good and even higher probably than you normally would if you're going to be gone for a while, especially. But you also want to make sure that you turn off the UV bulb in your pump. So you want to keep the pump running and the heating pads running, but you want to turn off the UV bulb. So how do they do that?
Yeah, that's a good point. So when you're unplugging the UV bulb, you're just going to want to unplug it directly from the wall. You'll notice in your setup that the pump and the UV unit have two different plugs. So you want to keep the pump motor plugged in, but you want to unplug the UV bulb.
Yep.
So it's pretty easy.
Yeah, so that's all you really need to do. I mean, I've had my tank, I've gone probably a month without cleaning my tank, but the other important thing is that I didn't use it.
Yeah.
So I did my water maintenance like Mason just described, and I wasn't using it. So you also want to make sure, obviously you're not going to be using it if you're going out of town, but nobody else is going to be using it. And if somebody else is going to be using it, that they need to know how to do water maintenance. So. Yeah. But if you clean the tank and check your levels, put the peroxide in, turn off your UV filter, it'll be fine for as long as it's not being used, basically. So no worries there. And then sometimes people worry about, because we tell you, especially if you're going out of town, leave your pump on and leave the heating pads on. Why do we want to keep the water warm, Mason?
That's a huge one. You want to keep the water warm because if it cools down too cool, if the water gets too cool, then the salt will start to recrystallize and it'll form into a solid. And you're going to come back to a bunch of salt around the rim of the tank, and you're going to have to break those salt crystals down, and you're going to have to mix it back in the water. So it's going to be a pain in the butt, and then also, you might have some issues on the side of the tank getting the salt off. So that's the big one.
Which, by the way, we're going to have another video about how to get rid of salt crystals.
Yeah, we will do that.
So, but if you do, obviously we want to be preventative and not, reactive. Kind of saving water or salt crystals, that stuff's really difficult. So just stay on top of your water maintenance, and then it's always easy. Yeah. But so people worry about, leaving the pump on and the heating pads on because they draw energy. But our tank especially, it's probably like here in Utah, it probably only costs around 15 to 17 bucks a month to have everything running. So the point is that we use radiant heating. It's not like super fast heating systems that we have, so it's not going to heat the water up fast. It does it really slow, but when it gets it there, it keeps it there very easily, especially with the inflatable tank, but just because it's insulated better. And then same thing with the pump. It just draws really low energy. I mean, you're barely going to notice what happens to your power bill, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I would say we traded a little bit. It's sort of a balancing act, and we've traded a little bit of power for stability and efficiency. So just to keep it as low cost as possible, you've got to balance it a little bit. But I would also say when you're keeping the pump on, the reason for that, I know it might turn some people off, but if it sounds weird, just get that out of your head and just do it anyway, because if you leave the water with the pump off, it's going to stand still, and still standing water can cause all sorts of problems. So even though it sounds like you're going against what you should be doing, just keep it on. It's safe to leave on for long periods of time, and you won't come back to a tank that's out of control.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely want to keep that water moving, and so leave the pump, just leave it all plugged in. Only time you're not going to have, only thing that's not going to be plugged in from time to time is the pump, and that's when you're floating. Just because the noise and you just want to have that unplugged when you're floating, but you plug it right back in when you're done. So
Yep.
this stuff is designed to run 24/7. So, and the heating pads turn on and off when they need to. When it needs heat and doesn't need heat, they'll be on and off. So.
Yep.
So anyhow, so that's what to do if you go to town. There's no big issues there. You just want to take those preventative steps, is all right.
Yeah.
All right,
about
man.
it.
That's it. Thanks, guys.
Okay. Thank you.